It's 1:47 a.m. You're not talking to a person right now. You're typing into something that will never actually notice if you disappear tomorrow. And that's not pathetic. That's not a personality flaw. When it's late and your chest feels tight and every person you'd normally text is asleep, or busy, or just not the one you actually want to bother, the phone is right there. It listens. It responds instantly. It never sounds tired of you, so you keep going back. Here's the part nobody tells you though. The more you lean on it exactly when you're lonely, the lonelier you might end up feeling by the end of the month. Not eventually, measurably. And there's a reason for that. Buried in a year-long study, most people will never sit down and actually read. Okay, let's talk about what actually happens in a normal week, because it's never one dramatic moment. It's 100 small ones. You have a rough day. Something stupid happens. Your manager says something in a tone you can't stop replaying, and you get home and you want to tell someone. So you open the group chat. You type out 3 paragraphs. You delete 2 of them because they sound too much. You send the short version instead, and you wait. Someone reacts with a thumbs up. Someone else sends a laughing emoji at something unrelated 3 messages later. Nobody asks a single follow-up question. The read receipts show everyone saw it. Nobody actually saw it. You put the phone face down on the bed, and you feel worse than before you open the chat, and you can't even explain why, because technically you reached out. Technically people responded. So the next time it happens, you don't bother with the group chat. You open something else instead, a chatbot or an AI companion app or whatever you've got saved. And you type the whole story, the real version, the one you deleted twice before sending to your friends, and it responds warmly. It asks a follow-up question. It says exactly the thing you needed to hear, phrased exactly the way you needed to hear it, because it's built to. For 4 minutes, your chest actually unclenches. Then you close the app, and the room is just as quiet as it was before you opened it. Nothing in your actual life changed. Nobody knows what happened to you today, except a system that forgets the second the conversation ends. And somewhere in the back of your head, a very quiet voice goes, "That felt like something, but it wasn't actually anything." Here's another version of the same week. It's Friday night. You didn't get invited to whatever your friends are doing, or you did and you said no because you were tired, and now you're lying in bed scrolling through a story of someone your age at a rooftop thing, tagged with 4 other people, captioned like it's the best night of their life. You don't consciously think, "I'm jealous." You just feel a specific kind of heavy, a comparison your brain runs before you even agree to it. You keep scrolling. You tell yourself you're just checking in, just seeing what's going on, but 40 minutes disappear and you've absorbed 12 strangers' best 5 seconds each, back to back, with nothing to compare it to except your actual Friday, which is just you, a ceiling and a phone at 11% brightness because your eyes hurt. You call this resting. A lot of people call it that now, lying in bed for hours scrolling and telling themselves it's recovery. It isn't recovery. Recovery makes you feel restored. This makes you feel like you just ate something that tasted fine going down and sat wrong for the rest of the night. Or maybe your week looks like this instead. You post something low stakes, anyone up, who's around this weekend, testing the water without actually asking anyone directly, because directly asking feels too exposed. 40 people see it. 6 people like it. 2 send a heart emoji. Nobody actually says, "Yeah, let's do something," because nobody wants to be the one who commits first, either. So the post just sits there, technically acknowledged by 40 people, and you end up doing exactly what you would have done if you'd never posted it at all, except now you also know 40 people saw you try and nobody moved. You start doing the math without meaning to. You compare your inbox to other people's highlight reels. You compare your Saturday to their rooftop. You compare the version of your life that exists only in your head, quiet and unfinished, to the version of everyone else's life that they built specifically to be looked at. And it never once occurs to you in the moment that they are doing the exact same thing on their end, scrolling somebody else's rooftop, feeling exactly as behind as you do. Some nights it's not comparison, it's just noise. You open the phone to check one notification, and 45 minutes later, you're 3 unrelated topics deep, an argument in someone's comments about something you don't even care about, a video about a stranger's divorce, a clip of a fight in an airport. None of it is about you. None of it requires anything from you. And that's exactly the appeal, because feeling something about strangers online is so much easier than feeling something about the actual empty apartment you're sitting in. You know the difference, somewhere. You know a real conversation and a scroll session don't leave you in the same place afterward. One of them, even a short one, a 5-minute call with someone who actually knows your life, tends to leave you calmer, lighter, like something settled. The other one leaves you a little more wired, a little more aware of everything you don't have, and somehow still holding the phone 40 minutes after you told yourself you'd put it down. And this isn't a willpower problem. You're not weak for reaching for the thing that responds instantly over the thing that might take a day to text back. Of course you reach for the fast one. Everyone would. You've probably tried to fix this the obvious way already. You deleted the app for a weekend. You turned on a screen time limit. You told yourself Sunday would be the day you actually called your friend instead of just liking her story. And Sunday came, and you sat there with your phone in your hand, thumb hovering over her name, and you didn't call because calling felt like a bigger deal than it should, and texting "how are you" felt fake, and doing nothing felt safest. So you opened something else instead, not because you forgot the plan, because the plan required something the phone doesn't: the risk of an awkward pause, a slow reply, a conversation that might go somewhere uncomfortable. That's the actual trade you're making every time, even if nobody says it out loud. A real person might not answer for 6 hours. A real person might be distracted, or short with you, or bring up something you don't want to talk about. A chatbot never does any of that. It's available at 1 a.m. It's warm every single time. It never brings its own bad day into the conversation, which sounds like an upgrade. It sounds like exactly what you needed until you notice you've had this exact conversation with it 4 times this month about the same thing, and you still feel just as stuck as the first time. There's a version of you that would call this just talking things out, the same way journaling is talking things out, except journaling doesn't talk back and pretend to know you. It doesn't simulate the feeling of being understood by someone who chose to understand you when nobody actually chose anything. Nothing chose you. Something responded to you, which is a different thing entirely, and your body might not be able to tell the difference in the moment, but a part of it seems to notice later in the specific kind of empty that shows up after you close the app. You felt that specific empty before, late at night, phone still warm in your hand, battery somewhere in the single digits, 40 unread notifications from people who aren't actually checking on you, and one open conversation with something that will forget this entire exchange the second you close the tab. And underneath all of that, the same thought keeps circling back around. If something actually went wrong right now, tonight, who would you call? Not who would like the post about it tomorrow. Who would pick up? It's not even just a late night thing anymore. It shows up on your lunch break too. Sitting alone in your car or at your desk with 15 minutes to yourself, and instead of texting the one coworker you actually like, the one who might make the day slightly less gray, you open the same tab you always open because texting them requires you to come up with something to say. And the tab doesn't require anything at all. You tell yourself you'll talk to them tomorrow. Tomorrow, you have the same 15 minutes and the same tab open before you've even decided to open it. You're also not the only one doing this dance. Nearly half of people who've deleted a social app off their phone say they did it, specifically because of stress or anxiety, and the number is even higher for people your age than for anyone older, which means you already know somewhere that the thing is doing something to you. You felt it enough to act on it once, but most of those same people re-download it within the week, not because they forgot why they left, but because the quiet that shows up after deleting it feels worse than the noise did, at least at first, and nobody warns you about that part. So, back it comes. Same apps, same 1 a.m. scroll, same chatbot tab, still saved in your history. And the loop just picks up exactly where it left off. Put all of that together, and it stops looking like a handful of separate bad with habits. The group chat that goes nowhere, the rooftop photo at 11 at night, the chatbot tab still open from last week, the 15 minutes at lunch that somehow always goes the same way. They're not random. They're the same reflex wearing different outfits. The reflex of reaching for whatever responds fastest and costs the least. Every single time your chest gets tight. And because it works a little for about 4 minutes each time, there's never quite enough reason in the moment to reach for the harder, slower thing instead. Here's the actual answer to the open loop from earlier. The part of the study nobody quotes in the headline. Researchers followed more than 2,000 adults for a full year, checking in on how much they used AI chatbots for company and how lonely they felt over time. The pattern wasn't random. Feeling lonely made people reach for a chatbot first, which makes sense. That part isn't surprising. But then the more someone leaned on that chatbot, the lonelier they measurably became by the next check-in. Not the same. Worse. The tool that felt like it was closing the gap was actually the thing keeping the gap open. And once you understand why, it stops feeling confusing. A real relationship runs on risk. You say something a little too honest, and the other person might go quiet, or laugh at the wrong moment, or need a day to respond because their own life is happening too. That friction is annoying in the moment, but it's also the entire mechanism that builds trust. Every time someone shows up for you anyway, despite the risk, despite their own bad day, something actually gets built. A little more proof that you're worth showing up for. That proof accumulates. It's what makes a friendship feel solid, instead of situational. A chatbot removes all of that friction on purpose, because friction is bad for engagement. It responds instantly. Every time, with zero risk of rejection, zero cost to you, which feels like relief in the moment, but nothing gets built because nothing was ever risked. There's no proof accumulating because there was never anything on the line. You can talk to it for 4 hours and walk away having invested real emotional energy into something that invested nothing back, structurally, not because it doesn't care, but because there's no it there to care in the first place. So your brain gets the momentary sensation of being heard, which is real. That part isn't fake. Feeling heard does register in your body as relief, but it never gets the actual output a real connection produces, which is the slow accumulation of evidence that you were known by someone specifically over time, warts and all. Without that evidence building up anywhere, the baseline loneliness underneath everything doesn't move. If anything, it deepens, because you spent your emotional energy for the day on something that can't remember you tomorrow, instead of spending it on the harder, slower conversation with someone who actually could. There's a term researchers have started using for the more extreme version of this, something close to a shared delusion between a person and a system that can't push back, can't disagree, can't bring its own needs into the room. Most people aren't anywhere near that extreme, but the smaller, everyday version of it is already showing up in the data. Heavy daily use of these tools has been linked to lower real-world socializing and more emotional dependence over time. In people who look completely fine from the outside, going to work, posting normally, replying to texts eventually, just quietly routing more and more of their actual emotional weight towards something that can't carry it anywhere. It's the same mechanism, by the way. Behind the rooftop photo scroll from earlier, the one where you absorbed 12 strangers' best 5 seconds each and came away feeling worse. Watching someone else's highlight reel gives your brain a small hit of social information, a sense of being plugged into what people are doing without a single actual exchange happening between you and them. No message sent, no reply expected. Nothing risked, nothing built. Just data flowing one direction into your head while your actual social muscles sit there unused. It scratches the same itch a chatbot conversation does for the same reason, and it leaves the same specific kind of empty behind it, because watching connection happen to other people was never going to function as connection happening to you. This is not a character flaw, and it's not proof you're bad at relationships. It's what happens when the easiest option in your pocket happens to be the one that structurally cannot fix the thing you're using it for. You're not choosing the chatbot over your friends because you don't value your friends. You're choosing it because it's right there, it's instant, and reaching for the harder option at 1 a.m. takes a kind of energy that loneliness itself tends to drain out of you first. That's the trap. The thing that's supposed to help you feel less alone is by design the exact thing built to require the least from you, and the least from you is also the least that gets built. None of this means the tool is evil or that you need to swear it off completely. It means it was never built to do the one job you keep quietly assigning it. It was built to respond, not to remember you, not to show up for you next Tuesday when it's inconvenient, not to notice on its own that something's been off with you for 3 weeks. Only a person can do that part, which is exactly why the fix has to involve one on purpose, even when the tab is right there and easier. So no, the fix isn't deleting the apps and going cold turkey, because that lasts about 4 days and you already know it. The actual fix is smaller and weirder than that, and it starts with catching the exact moment, not the whole habit. The moment is specific. It's the second where your chest gets tight, or the day was bad, or the room is too quiet, and your thumb is already moving toward the chatbot or the scroll before you've consciously decided anything. That specific moment, the one driven by loneliness rather than boredom, is the only one that matters here. You don't need to fix your entire relationship with your phone. You need to catch that one particular reflex 10 or so times and do something different with it. Here's the different thing. Instead of typing your whole situation into something that will forget it in an hour, send one real person, one specific message. Not, "Hey, how are you?" because that's vague enough to ignore and easy enough to leave on read. Something with a detail in it. "I had a bad day. Can I call you for 10 minutes? Or, thinking about that thing you said last week. You around tonight?" Specific enough that it requires an actual yes or no, not a thumbs up. It will feel more exposed than opening the chatbot. That exposure is the entire point, because that's the part that actually builds something. And by the way, this is exactly the kind of pattern I try to unpack every week on this channel. The stuff that feels like a personal failure until you see the actual mechanism behind it. If that's useful, following means the next one of these lands in front of you, instead of you having to go dig for it, which, fittingly, is a much lower stakes ask than the one I just gave you above. Second thing, smaller still. Once a week, pick one person you'd normally just double tap or heart react to, and call them instead, even for 5 minutes, even if it's slightly awkward at the start. You're not trying to replace every scroll session or every late night chatbot conversation. You're trying to make sure at least one moment a week goes towards something that can actually remember you tomorrow. That's it. That's the whole fix. Small, deliberately unglamorous, and built around the one thing the algorithm and the chatbot both structurally cannot give you, which is being known by someone specific over time, on purpose. You don't need to win the whole week. You need one specific message sent to one specific person instead of one specific scroll session. 10 separate times, spread out however long it takes. That's a low enough bar that you can actually hit it. And it's exactly the bar that starts moving the number that actually matters, which was never your screen time. It was always just this. Is there one person out there right now who actually knows what today was like for you? Not 40 people who saw a post about it. One person who knows. You're not broken for reaching for the thing that answers instantly. Anyone would. You're just allowed to notice tonight or some other night like it, that the fast answer and the real one aren't actually the same thing. One of them just happens to be a lot easier to reach at 1 a.m. Call the harder one anyway. See what happens.